Welcome to the kbbreview podcast. I'm still Andy Davies and I am currently in Swindon. Yeah, I've never been to Swindon before, and can I just say that I'm very pleasantly pleased that is the case. I am, however, very excited to be seeing who I'm here to see as I'm on my way to the main headquarters of Neptune. And this is generally a really interesting brand, and it's got over 30 of its own showrooms and nearly 100 more retail partners and franchisers across the country. It is one of the biggest kitchen retail networks in the UK, certainly in the premium market. And while everyone will know of it, I bet most of you had no idea it was that big. So I'm here to meet co-founder John Sims-Hilditch. He and business partner Giles Redman started it all in the mid-90s, selling hammocks of all things, and have built it into a full home interiors brand that incorporates not just kitchens, but everything else too, from tables, chairs, sofas, cushions, carpets, candles, crockery, the lot. It is such an interesting company, and one of the main reasons for that is that it's built around a really potent brand. And everyone involved, from founders to management, staff to customers, all buy into that brand. The Neptune look is a really valuable thing. So let's go and find out more from John Sims-Hilditch. John, thank you so much for inviting me down here today. It's such a beautiful place. So if people haven't been here, explain to us exactly where we are.
So it sounds unexciting. We are just on the outskirts of Swindon in an industrial estate, but it's a building like no other. We came here in around 2000, and it was a major transformation of this site into the heart of Neptune. There's a big showroom space here. We built a cafe. We've got this wonderful office space. And of course, we got all our sort of operational side, warehousing and distribution and custom manufacturing and paint workshops, all the rest of it. So it's a full headquarters doing everything that you would imagine that Neptune does.
It's a beautiful space, and as you say, you kind of come around the corner and you think surely it can't be there, and then it turns out that it is. And once you're inside here, it's fantastic. So thank you so much for showing me around it earlier. What I want to start with, if we can, because of course everyone knows Neptune, everyone knows you, and everyone's heard of it. But what they might not be aware of is actually the scale of it.
Yeah.
So just give us an idea of the scale in terms of retail, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of people.
Yeah. Okay. So just to briefly touch on the history, we started off sort of designing and manufacturing a hammock, and that was Giles and me, and pretty much that was it. Two sides of a sitting room. We've gone through 3 industrial buildings until we got to this one. Today, having gone from doing a hammock into garden furniture to doing interiors and then getting drawn into kitchen and now doing the whole heart of home concept that we have, today we've got in the UK 30 Neptune stores and then about 80 partner stores, which tend to be store in store. And then in Europe, we've also got about another 8 Neptune partner stores and about another 20 Neptune buy stores in Europe. So that's sort of the front face that you see. Of course, strong digital front face as well through our website to support all that. And then in the sort of head office and operational front, we now have a second operating warehouse for the sort of scale of what we do that needed a bit more space than we've got here. So in total in the UK, we're about sort of 450 people. That's including the stores, our distribution teams, and then our product design and development teams and all the kind of functions you expect in a head office. And then the manufacturing as well is around 400 to 450 people. So it's a reasonable scale of people nowadays.
A really significant operation, both retail and manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's quite unusual these days, I think, to have a sort of the size that you have, that at the level of sort of premium service and premium products that you make is quite unusual, I think. So look, we'll come on to all that in a minute. I want to kind of roll back the clock a bit, because as you said, you started really very modestly, mid-90s,
yeah,
making a hammock. Why hammocks? How did you land at hammocks?
I mean, I think Neptune is possibly a series of happy accidents. So the hammock was certainly a happy accident. Giles and I had decided to go on a course of starting our own business. We didn't really know what we wanted to do. We actually thought we might do something in the computer industry because we thought it was going places. But I had 2 kids and one on the way, and I said to Giles, I need to put some food on the table this year rather than sometime in the future. And we were discussing all kinds of crazy ideas. And Giles mentioned the sort of hammock that he'd bought in Mexico and sold a few at Reading University. And the chief idea behind it seemed to be that, you get more than one person in it, which I could understand if you're at university. And so we thought, this is quite fun. Why don't we have a go at a hammock? But immediately our design thinking kicked in and thought, well, don't want to do a Mexican hammock. We want to do a hammock that we think it makes sense. So with my kids in mind, we designed the hammock that actually was safe. We put draw cords in the side of it so that it could lift up and kids couldn't fall out. We've always been drawn towards the sea. We're an island nation, so hence the name Neptune. And so we thought, well, let's make a Navy-style hammock with a sort of canvas. And we created this wonderful hammock, and then we looked at each other and said, how many people do you know have got 2 trees and just the right place? And thought, it's a rubbish product. It's never going to work. And then I sort of scratched my head and said, well, I was a soldier before this, and we used an A-frame to get ourselves off the ground in the jungle so we didn't get eaten by all the creepy crawlies. So let's make an A-frame from one end. So we did, and it worked. It was great. And actually, you could use the 2 A-frames. And we then had our hang-anywhere hammock, and off we went. And in our first year, that we made 5,500 hammocks. So we fell into it purely accidental. And suddenly, because we went to a trade show, the Garden and Leisure exhibition in September, that was about 3 months after we started, in our tiny stand, and we gained all these trade customers when we saw all this garden furniture. So, oh God, there's other things we can do here. And so we just fell into that garden furniture industry.
It's interesting, isn't it, that you didn't have a furniture background, you didn't have a joinery, cabinet making background, like a lot of your contemporaries, I guess, would have had some kind of furniture, stripping furniture, restoring furniture, something like that. But you were just literally an entrepreneurial pair looking for somewhere to apply that passion.
It did. As I said, it's accidental. I think both Charles and I love making things. So, done it since our childhood, whether it was making mugs at school or a crossbow to try and hit your neighbor or something, I'm not sure. But we both have loved making things and being creative. I sort of see myself as also a contrarian. I hate following ideas. I like sort of creating ideas. So I think throughout Neptune's history, a lot of what we've done is contrary to standard thinking. I like to think afresh with a blank piece of paper and see, and then how would I like to do this.
And you can certainly see that in the kitchen stuff that you've done. But I'm rattling through this a little bit. But sure, obviously you did hammocks and then garden furniture, then you did kind of indoor furniture, tables and chairs. It's still a big leap from there to a full kitchen, which was obviously about 10 years after you did the hammocks or something.
Yeah, about then. Yeah, it wasn't actually such a big leap, interestingly. One of the big leaps was getting out of gardens. We ended up with 440 garden centres, and we had a fantastic garden furniture collection. But we had this horrible seasonal business, so we would be too busy in May and we slitting our wrists in October when there wasn't anything, struggling to sell 3 hammocks. And so we struggled with that and eventually said, right, the thing we were having thought of all kind of stupid ideas like, we could do fireworks or, Christmas toys or something, I don't know. We thought, well, we know a bit about making furniture. We can make it for the garden. We can make it for the inside. And we created the basics of our Chichester collection, which was about 10 pieces. And the interesting thing about the pieces that we chose was that they were kitchen orientated. So we did a kitchen island, we did a chopping block, we did a table, we did a dresser, but they were all focused around that kind of heart of home idea of where you spend your space living. And we did this photo shoot, and that we were sort of triggered into thinking about doing everything rather than just the furniture through that first photo shoot where my wife Emma had helped us with all the styling. But also, so I got calls about the other items, but I also got people saying, I love your freestanding island and your chopping block. What about a freestanding kitchen sink? And I just thought, well, isn't a kitchen just pieces of furniture pushed together? That was the contrarian mindset. And I had, we're still in our first cottage, and I had originally put a magnet kitchen in there, which, on the face of it looked quite nice, but I wasn't very satisfied with the internals of it, the way it was made, and certainly wasn't built to last in the way that our furniture is built to last. And so I kind of conceived of this idea. I'd love to have a bespoke kitchen, but can't afford it. And if we could just make standardized cabinetry that has all the qualities of bespoke, but actually doesn't get made one by one, it's actually been pre-designed to certain sizes, that would work. So we moved from making these freestanding pieces of furniture that I mentioned to making not just a kitchen sink cabinet, but also a kitchen bin cabinet and a kitchen drawer cabinet and a pan drawer cabinet and an oven housing cabinet and a fridge housing cabinet. And so we made about, I think the original Chichester collection was 16 cabinets only. And I believed that with those 16 cabinets, I can make any kitchen. And I broadly did. The first kitchens we did were made out of 16 standard cabinets. And of course, from that, the ideas flowed. So it didn't seem like a particularly hard transition. It was quite an interesting sort of thinking process that all we're going to do is make beautiful pieces of furniture that you push together and join together.
But I think what's interesting is it's a classic entrepreneurial approach to things. Is first thing you do is decide what you don't want.
Yeah.
And it's usually about, I don't want to repeat that. I don't want to repeat what other people have done.
Yeah.
And you're taking what is quite a standardized by that point, because we're talking early 2000s here, aren't we? It's a very standardized modular system.
Yeah.
And basically going, well, why is it like that?
Yeah.
And why is it like this? And maybe that is the benefit of not having coming from that background, is that you're just questioning.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think one of our advantages has been ignorance, ironically. Not knowing how it's always been done has meant that we've employed original thinking. We've just said, well, how would I like to do it? So, for example, I made an early decision. I didn't want us to use MDF or chipboard because I don't want it in my house, and therefore I don't want it in other customers' house. I want furniture that's authentic, that I think will last indefinitely. So that was kind of one of our early processes in thinking. I thought about how our shelving works, and I thought, actually, I hate those pegs that always, the holes break and you put something a bit heavy and the whole thing collapses and you spend the next 20 minutes clearing up the mess that's just appeared under your sink. So I thought, I don't want that. And that was also an MDF point as well, because I didn't want the shelves collapsing, but MDF getting wet doesn't perform well. So I thought, I don't want that. So we made these zigzag shelves inside. Everything within our first 16 cabinets exemplified what we believed good furniture was all about, that would last indefinitely. It was strong, beautifully built. I am certainly a person who loves things that will last indefinitely. I do not believe in the sort of make it, break it.
But you're not a joiner.
No.
But a lot of the things that, the details of which there is an enormous amount in your stuff, is sort of very joinery based. You have people that clearly know how to do joinery. You're not coming at it from a cabinet making joinery.
No, but I love study. So whenever we're making something, I do then like to do the research and say, well, how have people done this before? And what's the best method? The zigzag shelf we have isn't our design. I mean, zigzag shelves were created extensively in historical pieces of furniture from 50 to 200 years ago, not in recent history, completely abandoned. But for me, that was an authentic piece of design that looked beautiful, but also is high performance. I mean, I would never expect a zigzag shelf to ever fail in 100 years. Literally never fail. And then, using solid timber shells, which again, typically you wouldn't find today. I was very lucky to have, throughout our career, I've had a few outstanding joiners working with me. So I'm there hammering them with questions. How does this work? How's that work? And sucking it all up, loving it, learning all the time. And remember Dan, who worked at Mark Wilkinson, who came to work with us. He was a joiner and made amazing furniture at Mark Wilkinson. He came to work with us as our first designer. And he's saying, you need to use solid timber shells because they don't bend. And I'm going, so I'm learning about wood structure and fibers and how fibers are important and how they give incredible tensile strength. And so, this just absorbing all this information all the time. So, oh, that's great. So I know our shells, you can pretty much load up with any weight you consider. I mean, for example, we use our shelves in wine rooms. And I don't mind how many bottles of wine people will stack on one of our shelves, or the zigzag system, because I know both are robust. They're not going to be coming to me and saying, my case of Chateau Lafitte's all smashed on the floor.
Even just challenging standard cabinet sizes or standard drawer widths or all that kind of stuff just doesn't feel right to you to have those sort of standard sizes.
So the standard size thing was interesting for us because one of the criteria, with my magnet kitchen, all the cabinets were basically around 600 width. And I thought, what defines a high volume production kitchen is this width of 600. It's repeated all the time, and you can pretty much spot a standard one. And I said, what defines a bespoke kitchen is the fact that everything is made to measure for the space, but it's hellishly inefficient. So I thought, what we need to do is adopt the bespoke mindset of odd sizes that do not match the 600 size. So visually, when you look at a Neptune kitchen, it looks 100% bespoke. And actually, sometimes we do have a bespoke workshop, and sometimes customers commission something bespoke because they particularly want it. But you can't tell the difference in one of our kitchens between a actually bespoke cabinet and a standard cabinet that has been used within it, because every size is dissimilar. No size mathematically goes the same as the other. And that idea was about creating a fabulously bespoke look. So our original phrase, when Giles and I started Neptune in 96, and we did our hammock, I wrote down this phrase, which is still true today, which was designed as modern classics of lasting quality at affordable prices. So it was about design. It was about sort of modern classic kind of design, not something fairly timeless, lasting quality and affordable prices. But the affordable prices was really important. So that's what we were trying to achieve.
What I find fascinating about Neptune is that everything's from the brand down, and you clearly got a very clear concept of what Neptune is, and everything else kind of falls into place behind it. So do you have a sort of definition of it in your head that if someone says, what is Neptune, what does it mean?
Yeah.
What's your answer?
We do have a strong definition of what Neptune means. So I have a military background, and so I came into Neptune with the idea that I didn't like the way the commercial world operated. I found it very combative, and I thought, that's not, although I was trained in combat, actually, in the sense of the British Army, it was about us working collaboratively to achieve single goals together. So I wanted to bring that idea to Neptune. I've always thought philosophically about what makes a great business. Another piece of information I discovered years back was that only in the FTSE 100, only 2 companies pre-exist the Second World War. So it's not a very enduring experience. And I thought, well, how do you make a business that lasts 100 years? And that has been a mindset that's been at Neptune now for a very long time. And one of the things I think is really critical is that the brand itself has to be at the apex. It's not about me. It's not about Charles. It's not about Mike, our fabulous CEO. It's about the brand Neptune. We have to define that super clearly so that everybody who comes to Neptune, both our customers, our partners, and of course our fantastic team, they all have to be buying into the Neptune vision and saying that's what we believe in, that's what we want to do. So we have worked hard to set out what Neptune means, and the 100-year point when we just set on that thing was, I remember discussing this with the management team there, and I said, look, I want to set 100 years as our vision because none of us will be around to see it. So that means we've got to put things in place that need to survive us and last beyond us. So we came up with 4 very clear principles around what Neptune is all about. There is one guiding principle, which is do the right thing. And that's a real guiding principle. It's not thin words. So, the NDF chipboard ones go back to that as a good example. For me, that was doing the right thing, making furniture from proper wood that I thought would last indefinitely. Great engineering in our furniture that you don't see as well as what you do see. So we love our Morse and tenon joints, but you don't see them in most of our furniture. They're all hidden inside the joinery. So do the right thing is a 360-degree thing, and the way we like to judge it is whether our customers approve of all our decisions, both hidden decisions as well as seen decisions. The second one is aim high, which I love as a principle, but is basically trying to be as good as we can be. And one of the testing factors behind that is not always succeeding. If you're aiming high, if you're really aiming high, you can't always get it right. You have to occasionally make some mistakes, but you learn from those mistakes and you progress. The third one is do it together. I think one of the difficulties in any organization is trying to make sure you've got cohesion and everybody's is enjoying working together, has a common goal. And I reference Mike here, our CEO, is absolutely brilliant at making sure people have a single vision and that we're working together on a single objective. And the last one is a lovely one, which is keep it real. This was introduced by our past marketing director. And really the idea about that is that we are in such a privileged position doing what we do, creating homes with a heart for a lifetime of experiences is a real privilege and joy. So not allowing ourselves to get too caught up by the tensions of the day, the stresses of the day. And we've had plenty of those stresses and tensions of the day, but if we're going to be able to stick together and keep a smile on our faces and move forward happily and productively, then keeping it real is really important. So those are sort of our guiding principles.
With those guiding principles in place, you've then expanded the remit of the brand into literally, if you walk around the display scene, you can buy everything in that display, and it's the rugs, it's the cushions. You clearly have a lot of philosophy of if you can see it, you can buy it.
Yes.
Which lots of people don't do, expands it beyond the kitchen realm or the furniture realm into a home brand. And to do that, you have to have a brand that people want to buy into and have in their home. So you clearly worked on what Neptune externally means to people as well. And there are very few brands that do that in this market. I would think of Duval or somebody, an obvious one. When you buy your products, you're buying into the philosophy.
That's definitely right. I think for me, again, a word I've always been interested in is the word brand. In my mind, it originates from, I don't know if this is true, but it originates from owners of cattle marketing their cattle to say, that's my cattle. But it does mean something that, it means that actually you know where that cattle have come from, you know what they've eaten, you know how they've been treated, you know all the husbandry. And so it stands for something. So brand is important. It's not just a image. It actually stands for something. So all those values that I talk about are all represented by that N. And you see that N, then it should mean something to you. It should mean that there's a mark of authenticity and high design and great quality and products designed and intended to last 100 years.
But even just from a very black and white business perspective, if someone walks into that display, I would imagine most of the time they say, I'll have a lot.
People come into our showrooms, and it's a very common phrase that you hear if you talk to our showroom teams. They say, God, people always come in and say, I want to live here. And so we do set out a vision of how living can be. And of course, most people can't afford to do that on day one or even year 5. But what we like, we're very attracted to the long journey with customers. So we want to look after them every day that we interact with them, because we'd like to think that we're with them for life, for their lives. And so hopefully over time, whether somebody can just only afford a coffee table or whether they do a whole kitchen, we hope we build a relationship with them that is honest and fair and respectful, so that they enjoy coming back with us and build and developing their home slowly as they can afford to do that in a way that they love. And I think we have been very successful at that, and because we have, one of our real strategic strengths is our customer loyalty. It's very humbling that the customers have bought into our vision and said, yeah, we love what you do and we want to stick by you.
You mentioned the retail, but could you sort of break down the different types of retail that you operate in for us? Because obviously you have your own stores, you have partners, and how does that structure work?
So if I just talk about the sort of evolution, so we came from designing hammock to wholesaling through 440 garden centres, some fabulous garden furniture, to starting interior furniture. And I have to admit, to a certain sense of being a control freak, I would like everything to be within my control. So I had years back thought I really would like to have my own stores. I also noticed in business, so going back to sort of, I don't want this sort of combative nature of business, I hated the concept that businesses are fighting each other. I worked with a friend from years back, and we conceived of this idea, which people talk about the word partnership, but they don't really mean it. And for me, actually, I thought it's a great word. And if we meant it, if we made it happen, then it would really work. So we really strongly believe in the concept of partnership for real. For us, success is a win-win where our suppliers and our retail partners, as well as us, are all equally sharing in success and also equally sharing in problems. That isn't typically how supply chains work. Supply chains like to kick the problem back up the supply chain. So the retailer likes to blame the wholesaler, and the wholesaler likes to blame the manufacturer, and the manufacturer kicks somebody on the workshop floor out the butt for something going wrong. But it's a terrible way of working. And so we thought actually partnership really matters. We fell into, well, we didn't fall into, because I did actually admit that I did always want to retail a bit because I wanted to control the space. But we did fall into retailing through some of our partners who ended up doing all Neptune. They sort of loved what we did so much, particularly as we moved into kitchen. They thought, well, there's no point in me doing anything else. Neptune's got it all covered. I'm just going to do a Neptune store. And one of them put Neptune over the door. And I said to him, that's my brand, not yours. But I said, we can come to accommodation. And from that, we sort of developed a franchise arrangement. So we basically set the rules of what running a Neptune store needed to look like and feel like, and the behaviors within it. And at the same time, we had our own stores just beginning to evolve. So when you see Neptune over the door, 2/3 of those are run by us, and about 1/3 of them are run by partners. Internationally, all our Neptune stores, where you see Neptune at the door, are run by partners. There's a very symbiotic relationship. There's a very mutually respectful relationship. For me, the greatest joy is to see them succeed. If they're winning, then we're winning. It's just it just works brilliantly. And then coming from wholesale again, I like the idea that I can bring other wholesale partners closer to Neptune, because I do strongly believe what we do is unique and outstanding, and therefore building relationships with retail partners should be perfectly reasonable and possible. And we have done that successfully over the years. So we have a next tier down that we call Neptune Buys. And typically those are independent retailers, fiercely independent sometimes. They love what they do. And they have a number of retail manufacturing partners or design partners they work with. And they put a bit of Neptune in. And we kind of say, well, what we'd like you to do is have a proper Neptune space, not a bit of Neptune here, a bit of Neptune there. So within your store, put a proper Neptune space in so you can explain the Neptune brand properly to customers who are interested. And that's a Neptune buy typically, although we do also have some Neptune buys who have fairly fully migrated into full all Neptune now, because they just love the way that we work and the availability of stock and all the good things that we try to make work for our partners, but they haven't quite got the right premises or whatever, so they haven't transitioned into a full Neptune store. But typically most of them want to do that and eventually end up doing that.
All of those people have got to buy into this concept, haven't they? They've got to buy into the philosophy of it, because it can't just be a supplier retail relationship. We've got to buy into what Neptune is, as opposed to just here's what the product is.
Yeah, and I just think that's about finding like-minded people. We work with some retailers that it wouldn't work with. We work with some. It's funny, I mean, there's a retailer, a garden centre actually, we worked with for years, and we had this sort of tempestuous sort of love-hate relationship, much more love than hate, I have to say. But nevertheless, they were never going to come along and say, we just want to have Neptune over the door, because they were too independently minded for that. Lovely guys, really, really lovely guys, but they come back to us recently and said, actually, we'd quite like to just go down the whole Neptune route. I love these, we have some real mavericks and independent retailers. They're really great guys. And I think it's just, it's up to them if and when they ever want to do that. If they want to sort of...
Well, they all have their own entrepreneurial spirit.
They do.
They do.
It's one of the reasons I like having these partners, is because they test us and challenge us, and they sort of force new ideas on us. Some we agree with, some we don't agree with. And, but we learn through that process. It gives us a lot of extra dynamism as an organization, where we've got this sort of wider ecosystem that we work with.
So how is the market for you at the moment? Lots of people are finding it particularly tough at the moment, and have done for quite a long time. So what's it like for you? You're a big organization, you're direct retail. How is it for you?
And I'm actually really happy to say that it's pretty damn good. And we know it's tough out there, and we hear lots of people not having the experience we're having, and I sort of ask that question, why is it different for us? And I don't honestly know the answer, but if I was to try and guess why it's different for us, I think we've had this consistency of what we stand for we've been going now for, next year's our 30th year, but we've had this consistency of what we stand for. I think we took about 5 years to really understand what we stood for. So we've gone on and off the rails. So let's call it 25 years. We've had this consistency of what we stand for. We've built, as I touched on before, this incredible brand loyalty with our customer base. So I've always had this view that I want to, I don't need to win hundreds of new customers every day of the week. I actually just want to win each customer one by one, draw them in slowly but steadily. And this lifetime view that our relationship with our customers lasts over a lifetime should mean that we have a much more steady incrementalism than a lot of businesses might find, who are going to be more affected by economic cycles. We don't want to be heavily affected by economic cycles. We just want to incrementally build our loyal customer base, maintain and build the quality of that relationship with them, so that they stay with us through their lifetime and the evolution of their lives, steadily building. Because we also are never saying we must sell the whole of Neptune in somebody's home at the beginning. We know that we're an expensive decision, but we also believe we're the best value decision. We're not the cheapest, but in terms of value, what you get from Neptune is so much more than what we cost. So if we'd like to win customers to understanding that's the way it works. And actually, we'd like them to play the game according to what they can afford over the time that it takes. They do not need to do all Neptune all one day. They can buy a coffee table if that's what suits them. They can enjoy that for as long as it takes before they then say, actually, now I want the sofa, or now I'm actually going to put a utility room or whatever, or the whole kitchen. And then we have others at the other end of the extreme who say, I just want you to do my whole house. And we really do get that. It's amazing.
So as a business owner of the scale that you've had, what are your challenges then? What are the things that you're facing? Is it literally just the overall cost of living? Is it 400 odd people? If national insurance goes up, that's going to hit you. What are the things that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis?
I think our biggest strategic issue is being better known. And I don't mean just physically do you know the Neptune name, but do you know how tirelessly and how hard we work to get it right for you? Because I do come across people who say to me, I wish I had known Neptune before I made this purchase decision. And I feel a responsibility over that, because I have somebody I met recently who said, they bought another manufacturer's kitchen and then realized it looked a bit like a Neptune kitchen, but it was not a Neptune kitchen, and they are actually going to take it out and put it in one of our kitchens. So that is, there's such a white heat of noise out in the marketplace that trying to cut through and have people understand how authentic you are, how passionately you believe in doing things that will last 100 years, trying to get that cut through is incredibly hard. So we feel there's a lot more people who would absolutely buy Neptune if they really knew about it. So that's probably our number one strategic issue, I think.
And how about people? Because you employ a lot of people,
yeah,
and finding good people is really hard, and particularly finding very good skilled people, artisans, craftsmen, it must be really, really difficult.
Yeah, it is hard, but I do think, again, it's this brand awareness. As people understand the brand, then they really do. We suddenly become an incredibly attractive place to work, because it's work with meaning. It's not just work to pay bills. People are critical, and particularly the leadership at every level. So leadership in stores, leadership at head office, leadership in manufacturing. Or if we have the right leadership, and I do think we've got some outstanding leadership here, then I think it makes it an enjoyable place to work, because we do stand for really good things, but actually ultimately it's down to the people to deliver around the values that Neptune has and to nurture the teams that we've got. So I don't think we typically find recruitment overly hard.
It just shows how much influence the power of brand can have over an entire organization, doesn't it? So it's not just about the brand to the customer, it's about the brand when it comes to recruitment, it's about the brand when it comes to differentiation.
It is a 360 thing, the brand, and it's not about an icon or an image, it's about a philosophy. That is the N mark is standing for something, and we're trying to find people who believe what we believe, ultimately, whether they're customers or people working in the organization or part of it.
So let's draw this to a conclusion here by talking about what happens next, because you have this 100-year philosophy, which is brilliant, and I really do buy into that. But I think with any organization that's been set up from the ground by entrepreneurs with a very clear vision, there is always a problem when it comes to scale. There's got to come a point where the company ages past you.
Yeah,
you might want to step away. You're the custodian of a very clear brand vision, but you've got to pass that on to other people, and you've got to do it at a scale which means people have to operate independently of you, and you can't be there with every single detail of everything. So what point are you at now, do you think? What scale do you think you can get to, and at what point do you decide that you can't be part of it?
Well, I can't be part of it when I'm dead.
But the coffee is amazing.
Before that, I'm sure I will always have it. It's like my first or fourth child, whichever way you put it, really. Before that, I'm sure I will always have an avid interest in it. But I coined this phrase years ago that I'm living to regret, that I want to be wanted but not needed. And sometimes I'm feeling not wanted, not needed. But I think that's a real sign of success, that for me, central to Neptune surviving for 100 years, going back to that idea that only two companies in the FTSE have lasted to this day from before the war. I think central to this idea is that the brand has to be uppermost. The team here don't work for me. They don't work for Mike. They don't work for Giles. They don't work for anybody. They work for the brand. And so we tried to bring Neptune to life and tried to really codify what Neptune is all about. And for me, that's the best chance of survival. So that, if I'm run over by a bus tomorrow, it shouldn't really make any difference. I'm pretty confident it wouldn't.
If we had had this conversation again in 10 years' time, where do you think we'll be?
Ooh, that's a really
interesting,
exciting.
How many retail outlets do you want? How many? What is the scale that you want to get to? Do you have that?
I love this question. I've had it a few times over the years, and when I left the military, I actually worked for my dad for a couple of years, and I was so green. It was just fantastic. But I learned everything about what I thought a business ought not be. But laughingly say, poor dad. But I did this. I had to ring up all these, healthcare sector, and I had to ring up all these hospitals trying to flog puncture-proof tires. And I had this coach come along just to listen to what I was saying. And I finished the call and she looked at me and said, call yourself a small company and that's what you'll always be. I never said it again. So when you say, where would I like to be in 10 years' time? For me, the sky is the limit. I think Neptune as a brand is potential. I mean, we're already well into Europe. We have a lot of people who ask for us from the US, but we're not particularly established in the US. I think we're clearly able to be a global brand. I also like to think, because we're talking about a 100-year vision, we will go at the pace we can go at. So I don't want to set any radical ambition. I want to be this size in 10 years' time. I actually don't give a damn. I want to be a happy, successful organization that people enjoy working for and customers love buying from. And the size will be the size that we get to at that point.
I can't think of a better place to end it than that, John. So thanks so much for all your time today, for showing me around. It's a fabulous facility you've got here. I'm glad that I finally got a chance to come and see it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Really great to have you here.